Hi, and welcome to Finextra at Sibos TV. And this morning we're speaking to Serge van Dam, who's Vice President of Market Development Mobile Solutions at Fiserv. And we're going to be talking about mobile today. So, I mean, today's banking clients are demanding, multiple ways to interact with their bank, whether it be through mobile phone, online, or even the branch, which a lot of people claim is dying but is still sticking around. How are banks enhancing their back-end operations in order to better serve customers via these channels?
So I think that the biggest thing that banks are doing are they're investing in middleware to try and stitch the channels together. I guess the idea or the label in the industry is this single view of the customer. And I think at Fiserv we sort of see two challenges or two themes that financial institutions really need to focus on. One is really about information convergence, which is really about having the same data across the channels. So if you're a consumer using an ATM or a mobile phone or a branch, you want to see the same information, the same balances or the same payments or whatever it is through whatever channel you use. And the other one's around what we call specialization of features. So there are things that channels each is good at, right? So the mobile channel is really good for what we call snacking, really low complexity, frequent transactions, whereas potentially a branch is better used for in-person conversations around financial planning and other things. So this concept of specialization is something that banks really need to think about and invest in across their channel infrastructure.
Okay, so I mean, even though there's this growing sophistication of banking customers, many of these real-time functionalities are often not in place today at various banks. So, in order to, what are some of those real-time functionalities, and what are these banks doing to develop them?
Okay, so I mean, obviously both consumers, businesses and the banks themselves would like to see a real-time enterprise. I mean, everybody wants to be working in real time, that's the expectation the market has. Sometimes it's very complex and expensive for banks to achieve that. So what we're seeing a lot is financial institutions invest in that real-time enterprise at the channel level. So to give you a couple of examples, we have a customer of ours in Australia called ANZ. They've invested in a person-to-person payment program, if you like, or service, but it's essentially built on our platform at the mobile channel level. Similarly in Cambodia, we have a bank called AC Leader, which is the biggest bank in Cambodia, and they do real-time bill presentment and payment, but they do it at the mobile channel level rather than in the core because it's just too expensive to build in the core of the bank.
I wanted to move on a little bit to social media, which is making much more of an impact in financial services. It started off as a way for customers to interact with their bank, and now it's sort of emerging as a transaction platform. So what will that banking landscape environment with social media, what will that look like in the future?
I mean, that's a great question. I wish I knew the answer in detail. I think the one thing I know is that it's making bankers very uncomfortable, and I think that it's going to continue to make bankers uncomfortable. The line is blurry and will get blurrier over time. So I think that's one thing we know. And we are seeing financial institutions invest in that space. So a couple of examples that I know of, there's a credit union called Vantage Credit Union. You can get your balances via Twitter with them. Amex, American Express, has invested quite heavily in Facebook as a channel for distributing offers, for example. At Fiserv, we've had a number of implementations of our online or digital banking services via Facebook. As an example, in the mobile suite, which I'm responsible for, we basically are looking at delivering alerts via social media. So consumers are no longer using email to receive notifications from banks. They would prefer to receive that in social media. So I see it being an area of enormous development. I see it being very blurry in terms of what's, social media versus channels, and I see banks having to live with a bit of discomfort, and I guess that's why they'll look to technology providers like Fiserv to try and solve those problems.
Excellent. Well, discomfort brings innovation.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.